Hi, this is Drake Behrakis, Chair of the National Hellenic Society, and I want to welcome you to one of our special NHS Excellence Series. And with us today, we have Vanessa and Eraklis Diamataras, both out of New York, and we're going to hear their stories, their family, about their family as well, but more importantly, how they are active and engaged in the community, in the Greek American community, both locally, nationally, and globally, and also what their thoughts are going forward in terms of how we can continue to build better bridges, not only with Greece, but also to bring our community, which, as we all know, it's a great, tremendously successful community. How do you keep it together? And it's not just the Greek Americans that are facing the struggle of maintaining their ethnic identity. It's a lot of different ethnic groups. And as important as great as it is to be in this country and working in this country and having our families here and our businesses here and our strong ties with our homeland, it's still a day-to-day challenge, as we all know, as generations become more entrenched in the American way. So with that, I'd like to have both of you, if you don't mind, maybe each spend a couple minutes just talking a little bit about yourself, kind of a synopsis of, from the day you were born to up until today, including, childhood and education and where you're at today, and then we'll kick it off from there. So Vanessa, would you like to start?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having both Eraklis and I on this amazing series that you guys have started. As we discussed a little bit earlier, this is a great way to get the younger generation involved and to tell their stories. I feel like we have been telling people's stories for a very, very long time at the newspaper, so it's nice to keep that tradition going. So thank you very much. So I was born in New York many, many moons ago. I am the older sibling. I was born in 1989 in New York, spent a couple of years here, a couple of years in Greece, moved back, went to kindergarten here, and I was ESL for sure. I did not speak English at all when I went to kindergarten. I knew I love you, cookies, and one or two other phrases. We only spoke Greek at home, obviously, and that's where my education really began in the United States. I went to Glen Head Elementary School until about third grade, and then I went to Portledge School, which is a small school on Long Island, and graduated from there in 2007. Went to Greek school, of course, until eighth grade at St. Nick's in Flushing. And then after graduating high school, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, where I graduated in 2011 with majors in sociology with concentrations in international relations, and minors in French and poli-sci. And then I went to work at Cravath, Swaine & Moore, which is a law firm in New York City. I was a paralegal for a few years, and then I decided to go to law school. I went to Fordham Law, graduated from there, went to work at Hughes, Hubbard & Reed, which is a big firm in New York City, for a couple of years. And then I decided that my true calling was to come to the newspaper. So that is what I did. And so now I'm a semi-retired lawyer, and we're at the newspaper with my brother as of just a couple of years ago. It's a very exciting time for news in general, but also in our careers. And I'll leave Eraklis to kind of tell you a little bit more about him. It's also I will say this, that although I was ESL going into kindergarten, my parents were afraid that Eraklis would not be able to speak Greek because I was trying to practice my English to kind of fit in elementary school, and he wasn't really speaking very much Greek as a toddler. And now, I don't know if you've seen any videos of him on the Greek news, but he absolutely crushes it, and my parents had nothing to worry about. So with that, I'll let Eraklis kind of take over.
Well, thank you, Vanessa, for that segue. Yes, they didn't have anything to worry about with either one of us.
Mhm.
I can vouch that Vanessa still loves cookies. So yeah, hi, I'm Eraklis Diamataras. Thank you very much for having us here today, and really excited to be working on yet another project with the National Hellenic Society. What a great organization. It takes a village in the community. It's not just one organization, or it takes a chorio for our purposes. It doesn't, one organization or over another. It's a collective for us to maintain Hellenism abroad. It's difficult, but the work is needed to be done. So my story began in 1994. Both my parents are from islands, and I couldn't seem to get away from it my whole life. I was born in Manhattan and raised on Long Island, so always by the water. I attended I went to Robin Hood preschool on Long Island, and I attended Portledge from kindergarten to 12th grade, where my sister went as well. During that time, for 9 years, I graduated in 2009. I went to St. Nicholas Greek Afternoon School in Flushing, and I had the honor of being the keynote speaker at the graduation that they held last Friday. Really a wonderful full circle moment, and I highly encourage all parents, if it's within their means, to send their children, even if it is to afternoon school, to Greek school, because I promise you that later on in life, the children will not regret it, although it is a pain to drag them there while they're going there. I graduated from Portledge in 2012, and I attended American University in Washington, D.C., where I studied communications, journalism specifically, and political science. I know, very original subject matter at American. And then I stayed in D.C. For a half a year, where I worked over at a law firm on K Street. And then Mayor Brown is the name of it. Sorry, I should probably say the name. Mayor Brown, very proud to have worked there, and just great people overall. Loved Washington. I came back to New York because I thought that the law school route would be the one for me. I went to New York Law, and I left early because I realized rather early on that it was not my calling. I didn't want to be a big corporate lawyer. So I thought that going to law school was a prerequisite for public service, dating from my time at American, and I realized very quickly that it was not. So I was in New York, and I decided I'd been helping the newspaper on and off, obviously, for a number of years, and I decided to take over I was allowed, not decided, but I was allowed to take over digital operations in 2019, in the early part of 2019. And me and my sister took over the business in July of 2019, and I do the Greek side of the operation, and I also help out with the online portions as well. I did not expect to be at the newspaper this early on in life and in the career, but I think I've been a media nerd my whole life. Love history, love to write as well. So it kind of just naturally fell into place, and it goes to show that the universe has a plan sometimes. So very, very happy to be here again, and hopefully I've provided the necessary background.
I wish I remembered to bring some props, because Eraklis truly has been a journalism nerd since he could read. We have so many photographs of him at the kitchen table. He started off with the sports section of the New York Times. I remember Dad would just leave that portion of the newspaper, kind of hoping that somebody would pick it up. And Eraklis definitely started picking it up when he was, very young. First looking at the photographs, and then, kind of starting to read whatever was written in there. And then he eventually started graduating to larger sections of the newspaper. And we have a lot of photographic evidence of this.
Yeah, Dad definitely knew what he was doing. That was a stroke of parenting genius. He preyed on the fact that I love sports, and it went from the Times sports section and just kind of went from there. Vanessa is very correct about that.
A little piece of bait.
Yes.
Just every day on the, the first few days, nobody would touch it. And then eventually it became part of our daily routine.
Well, to be fair, growing up, we didn't have smartphones. So I didn't have a computer either. So that was legitimately the only way I was really going to consume sports news prior to going to school in the morning. So again, props to Dad. He got me stuck on the bug early.
So we've been all, I mean, knock on wood, we don't know what path we're going to take or what God has plans for us, but you've been very fortunate, as I have with my family, to have our parents along with us for our journey from the beginning to today. And I know you've already touched upon it a little bit, but just the impact and the influence of our parents, especially Greek parents, Greek American parents, and trying to do what they probably didn't learn, right, as much as we learned. And we today as parents, you have so many resources out there, and you have so many peers, but a lot of our parents, they learned from what they knew, and it could have been back in Greece, or it could have been very early on in the turn of the century here. So talk a little bit about the role that your parents played. Obviously, we'll get a little bit into how our community has changed from let's say when I was born in the 60s to when you guys were born in the 80s and 90s till today, and what you've seen, but the role of our parents. And I know you've got exceptional parents. They're probably your heroes, as my parents are to me. So tell us a little bit about, some of the, I guess, takeaways you've learned at this point in your life from your parents, and what they've been able to help you through your own lives.
And where do you even begin with this?
Right.
So, I mean, who I am and who Eraklis is, we owe 100% to our parents. You touched upon this before, they are our rocks, our foundation, everything that we have done in our lives, it's because of them. So I don't think that we are unique in this, but, I always think that everybody always thinks that their parents are the best, but obviously we're a little biased and we'll probably say the same thing. But, both of our parents came from Greece. They came over when they were very young, 18 years old, didn't speak English, didn't know up from down, probably more so our dad than our mom. Our mom is from Chania, which is a little bit like a larger city in Greece, as opposed to our father, who came from a village in Limnos, Thanos. So they didn't have very many opportunities. Again, dad more so than mom, but they really did not have very many opportunities in Greece growing up. So I think that when they had children of their own, they wanted to give us everything that they didn't have, or opportunities that they didn't have. So Eraklis and I kind of commiserated over this a little bit when we were growing up, because every single day after school, we had some sort of activity, whether it was organized sports or piano or ballet or horseback riding or something. We were always busy because they didn't have extracurriculars when they were growing up. They wanted us to become the best versions of ourselves, the most well-rounded, the most, just the best at whatever we wanted to become the best in. They wanted to provide us with that opportunity. It was a little overwhelming, but in the best way possible. Like Eraklis said before, with Greek school, we complained all the time because we had to drive from our school, which was on the North Shore of in Nassau County, to to Flushing after a long day of school or sports. And, it would take a long time to get to Flushing in rush hour. So probably 45 minutes in traffic, maybe an hour. And we complained for sure, I think, just like everybody else. But looking back, I wouldn't change one thing. And I wish I could go back to my younger self and say, just listen to mom and dad. And they kept saying, this is good for you. Don't worry, stop complaining. And that's definitely advice that I wish I could give myself. But other than that, other effects that our parents had on us were just the values that they instilled in us. Being Greek and maintaining our culture, our religion, our language, everything about being Greek was ingrained in us from a very, very young age. And not in a forceful way, just kind of like how my dad left that newspaper on the table every morning. It was a little bit like bait. It was a little bit and a little bit and a little bit every day. And you don't realize, but being Greek and maintaining these customs that we have becomes really a part of you. And now I'm going to get married in Greece. I want my kids to speak Greek. I want to take them to church. I want to give them all of the opportunities that I had, not only for them to experience them, but also to ingrain them in them as well, in my kids as well, because being Greek is a huge part of it is who I am. And we can't lose that generation by generation. It's the same thing with the newspaper. If we stop writing down our stories or recording our stories now, where is our culture going to go? Where is our religion going to go? Where is our language going to go? It's a part of us, and we need to maintain it at all costs. So I want to thank very much my parents for doing that. Again, not in a forceful way, just in a very natural, I don't know, maybe all Greek parents have this way of just, planting these seeds that eventually flourish. I don't know. I think Eraklis had a similar experience, but I'll let him speak.
Yeah, I think, Vanessa touched on some really, really critical points there. We obviously wouldn't be who we are today, and being able to have the life experiences that we had up until today, and just being prepared for the real world, and the Hellenic world, which is also the real world, of course, but it's another world that we are immersed in without our parents. I mean, we're sitting in the Zoom call as a direct result, and we are byproducts of the American dream. How many times over the course of the last 200 plus years have we heard of the immigrant story coming from wherever in the world, encountering a lot of difficulties upon coming here. And what Vanessa was talking about is exactly what so many people have said throughout the centuries here in the United States. We're going to come to the United States so that we give the next generation a fighting chance, A, and B, hopefully they take the baton and move it further. So they told us, again, never sit down, stern lectures or anything like that. Vanessa really hit the nail on the head there. It was like a slow drip of wisdom. It was over time. When you only look back on the bathtub being full when it's actually full, but you don't realize it's happening while it's happening. And that's like the genius of parenting sometimes, where we were told to never settle, that we didn't have the option to settle because too many sacrifices, although they would never call them sacrifices, occurred for us to be in the positions that we are in. to not waste these chances. So yeah, I mean, our parents gave us that kind of fighting spirit, not laying down, not shying away from challenges, being the best version of ourselves, treating people with dignity and respect, being empathetic with people that don't really either resemble you or have the same kind of life experiences, which is obviously a very important Christian trait. And yeah, our parents, they performed the miracles under pressure. We had, my sister was talking about, I can't imagine how stressed out my parents must have been, knowing that, or thinking that I would maybe never learn Greek. I know that my sister was a much better soldier than I was when it came to Greek school. I would throw fits. I would throw tantrums. I couldn't find the value in going to Greek school when I was a little kid, because I always saw the other kids going to go learn something like Chinese or Arabic or something like that, because their parents had a different goal in mind. They thought that those languages were the key to unlocking prosperity later on in life. And while my parents obviously wanted my sister and I to be successful in life, they found it way more meaningful for us to learn to connect with our culture and our roots on a meaningful level. And that was the real currency there. So we took a foreign language in school, at our regular school, our day school. And, just learning Greek was such a huge bonus for us. And it has, being Greek is not a personality trait. It's a part of your character and how you carry yourself about on a daily basis. It's a heavy burden, because you walk out of the door every day with a tremendous amount of history behind you, whether that's familial or just patent history. So my parents did an amazing job growing up about taking huge concepts and breaking them down to something that was digestible and something that you can learn from rather than overwhelming us. So big thank you to our parents. I think they did a good job. Hopefully people who know us agree. And yeah, my sister's getting married in Greece, and she wants that for her kids. And my parents went 2 for 2 on that one, because I would love for my kids to be Greek Orthodox Christians and learning Greek and passing along this tremendous gift of being Greek.
And I'll just say one more thing. I think Eraklis really, to use his phrase, hit the nail on the head when he said that, being Greek is really who we are. It's not like just a characteristic. How many times did our parents not only talk to us about Greek history, but also philosophy and the importance of the various philosophers' teachings. Every single day it was another lesson, but it wasn't, you couldn't have learned this stuff in college, for example. You couldn't learn it in a classics class. You couldn't learn it in a history class. It was just woven into our daily lives. And I think that's really what makes us who we are. It's like it's not just one piece of us. It's really woven into every single part of us, into our brain. It's like the fabric, really, that, or the thread that really keeps us together. It's every stitch is a Greek, a hand woven stitch of just Greekness. And it's not something that can be taught overnight. It's not like cramming for an exam. Like Eraklis said, it's a very, very slow process. But then when you look back, you're just like, wow, this is who I am. This is not just a part of me. It's who I am as a whole.
And if I may just interject really quickly, just to illustrate that last point there, about the end result without you even realizing it. For my senior year in college, instead of going on a classic last senior trip with my buddies and going to Cancun or something like that. I went to Lesbos to volunteer for 2.5 weeks at a refugee camp at Karatepe, and that was that when I got there actually was the initial and sustained surge of primarily, but not exclusively, Syrian refugees due to the Syrian conflict, and that was a shocking experience. But the point I'm trying to make is that idea was entirely my own. It did not come from any other place than myself, and only recently-ish, that was 5 years ago now. But I'm realizing that the fact that came to me organically, that I wanted to go do some service in Greece as opposed to serving my own entertainment somewhere else for my last spring break as a college student, it really reinforced the idea of something that our parents said, over and over and over again, that kind of got drilled into us, of like service and helping and all that stuff stuck. And the way that you realize that those teachings stick is when the ideas that come to you from those teachings occur organically rather than somebody suggesting it. So highly encourage everybody watching, if they can get involved with nonprofit organizations. I recognize this is me telling you, but I hope that somewhere down the line you all find some time to serve.
Thank you both. That was, it's great to hear the experiences, because obviously a lot of it is familiar to us, but it's also getting the personalized things that stuck in your mind that you recalled and you remember that, and even it's like I said, as you both said, sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest impact on yourself. And it's all a struggle that we all face as parents, especially as our kids were younger. My wife and I'm second generation, my wife's first generation Greek American. And so we took the approach when our 3 children were born that we realized the first 3+ years of their lives, they're going to be at the house before they move on to, the American school system of speaking English and the American society of speaking English, right? There's no way around it. And so we spoke exclusively Greek to our kids. And, some of them to this day, they still maintain that, that importance of it. Others, it's kind of, okay, should I learn more? Should I learn less? So it's an individual challenge we all face, but I think it's been bred in us to find ways in this American society to keep not only ourselves connected, but also the next generation connected, which I'd like to get into in a few minutes. But one of the things, and you both touched upon it, and I certainly can relate to some of it, because we both have very strong dads, leaders in our community, leaders in business, highly influential, well-respected. But you also went through an experience, and whether it was 100% planned for or not, and while you were both in the business, your dad in 2019 was asked to join the Mitsotakis government. So it wasn't as if your dad said, okay, I'm handing over the reins to you guys. I'll be in the next office if you ever need me for advice and guidance. He physically left. So again, as much as that may have been planned for both of you in terms of you getting ready for that day, what was it like, the moment that you knew your dad was, of course, he was always available for you guys, but now he's physically removed. He's not, in the building with you guys anymore. So how was that initially? How was that transition? Speak a little bit about that and what you've learned from that.
Yeah, we were definitely thrown into the deep end. It was very unplanned. Nobody had really any idea. And so it was definitely being thrown into the deep end. But, I had been at the newspaper a little bit longer than Eraklis. I was already pretty much handling the English edition on my own. Obviously I would ask my dad for help regarding the front page for a long time, but there was a lot of pressure also. This is a historical newspaper. It's over 105, 106 years old now. So at least I'll let Eraklis speak But at least for me, it was a huge amount of weight and pressure to maintain the newspaper, the integrity of the newspaper, the quality of the newspaper. He had been running it for 40 years. So what did I mean, even though I had been at the newspaper for, like I said, a decent amount of time, I didn't have the experience that he had. What I kept asking myself, like, what do I know about this? What do I know about running a business? Working at a big law firm in New York City, you kind of press a button and you get the accounting department. You press another button, you get HR. You press another button, you get, all of the resources that you could ever possibly need were one phone call away. And then all of a sudden you're making very big decisions on your own. So that was definitely a little scary. I worked a lot of hours in the various law firms that I worked at, whether it was when I was a paralegal or when I was an associate. There were times where I worked literally 25 hours. Like I would go to the office at 9 a.m. and then I didn't leave until 10 a.m. the next day. And I was like, okay, with that. But then you go to the newspaper, and after a 12-hour day, after making like important decisions, I was just exhausted. I was like, I need to take a break. I need to step away from the computer because I am falling asleep. So it was definitely a different type of pressure. And it was pressure that I put on myself because I didn't want to let our community down. I didn't want us to mess up in any way. I wanted not only to maintain the value and the integrity of the newspaper, but I also wanted to enhance it. I was like, I just wanted to make it even better than it was. So that was that. And like you said, Dad was always on call if we really, really needed something, but he was so busy in Greece, traveling throughout the diaspora, to the different diaspora communities around the world, that we also didn't want to bother him all that much because he had a very important and time-consuming job already. So adding this pressure on for him, we definitely didn't want to do that. And he was never involved in the public sector in terms of another job. Like when he graduated, he just went to work for the newspaper. He didn't have another job. So we wanted him to focus very much on his new position. And, he very much enjoyed meeting our community members throughout the world. That's what he's been doing for 40 plus years, but actually meeting them on a global, in person and on a global scale was something that I think he always wanted to be a part of, and to meet people from, Australia and Germany and Israel, like everywhere that there are Greeks. So it was really his bread and butter. Eraklis, I'll let you add on to that.
Yeah, it was a very crazy time in July of 2019. I had been in Greece with my father covering the elections and the run up to them. And all of these changes happened while we were over there already. Like my sister said, I hadn't been at the company for, I'd been there maybe 4 months. But I never really had that business administration background, because apart from working at that law firm in DC, I also worked at the United Nations for the Permanent Mission of Greece. So it was kind of all over the place in terms of experience, but never at an executive level, which makes sense because when the change took place and my dad became a minister in the government, I was 24 years old. I was a few days shy of 25. Just to give you an idea, I was in the middle of planning my weekend birthday getaway with my cousins. And then suddenly you go from a kid to having, a lot of employees, a brand name to look after, 106 years, like my sister said. It's the oldest continuously printed Greek language daily newspaper outside of Greece in the world. That is a huge responsibility. We have a lot of readers who depend on us for their news source. So, a lot of thoughts in my mind. The world, obviously it wasn't a COVID world yet, but Greece was reeling from one crisis to another. It was just beginning to stabilize. Obviously, we had our own situation here in the United States where things were a little bit unstable. So, it was a very interesting moment to step into those shoes. It was very difficult for me in the beginning because, like my sister said, my dad was very busy when he took over his new job. And further than that, actually, I'll step back for just 1 second. I didn't have the experience as long as day to day as my sister did. The thing that helped me out was my learnings at American University. If I didn't have a comms background and journalism background, yes, I consumed the news, but I actually had some idea of how to present it, which was very, very critical in terms of how quickly the organizational chart of the newspaper was upended. I mean, we're talking about the same person at the top for like 43 years, gone in 3 days. It's not like the United States where you get an election in November and the other guy or gal, hopefully one day soon, assumes power in January and there's a transition time. I mean, we're talking about July, I believe it was 7th. The new government, and then Prime Minister Mitsotakis won the election. The 8th, he was sworn in. The 9th, his cabinet was announced, I believe, if I have the timeline right. And I believe the 10th, everybody was sworn in. So we're talking about in 3 days. The newspaper's leadership was totally upended. And then it was a question of, yes, he's very busy, and obviously you need help. But it's also a question of conflict of interest. So there were just some things where we could not ask him because we didn't want to put him in jeopardy in any way. And it was particularly difficult for me because the English edition was started up in 1997. The Greek side of things was started up in 1915. All of my predecessors in my position as editor and publisher of the Greek edition have all passed. So the only person that could possibly know what I need to do on a daily basis was the only person I couldn't ask. So I was really flying blind here, again, at a very young age. And I didn't know, and I relied on the community, and I relied on the professionalism and the camaraderie of my colleagues to help during that time, because just as things started to stabilize, I thought, 6 months later, the pandemic hit. So then, you're talking about in the first 2.5 years of running a business, you had a normal 6 months. And the rest of it was done via like this Zoom. So it's been a challenge. Also, being a first generation Greek American and leading a Greek language newspaper, it's really put my linguistic skills to the test to be able to not only read, write, and speak, but to do so at a high enough level that people are willing to pay for it. It's been, it's a totally different challenge going to somebody saying Kalimera, or writing a short essay, maybe a poem or something, rather than really getting into the nitty gritty of politics and science and things like that, which requires another level. So it's been great for that purpose as well. It's had its challenges. It's very rewarding work. But yeah, definitely that time in July of 19 was a chaotic summer.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that a little bit. If we didn't have, I think one of Dad's most valuable assets really is that he put together an amazing team over the years. Our colleagues, most of them have been with us. I mean, there are some people that have been with us from Dad's very beginning, like 40 plus years. Many of our colleagues have been with us for 30 plus years, 20 plus years. If we didn't have them as our guides, really, and it's odd, right? You know, you're coming in, you're kind of fresh out of college or a few years in the work world, and you're put at the top. You don't really know what you're doing. And if we didn't have our colleagues, which really, we always joke that everybody at the National Herald at Ethnic Eraklis is a family. If we didn't have that support from them, like to ask them probably very basic questions in the beginning, from just accounting to editorial to everything to production, we would have been totally lost. And we can't thank our dad enough for kind of giving us that foundation to help us along the way. Again, it wasn't done overnight. This has been a family that's been built over 40 years. So it's another one of, I keep going back to this a little, that dripping that fills the bathtub. And also I really want to touch upon the community and how supportive they were of us, but also of our father. We can't, it was really an emotional time also. We kept getting phone calls to the office or letters to the offices both in Athens and here, wishing us luck, but also wishing our dad luck. And it was very touching, and their support was invaluable, and it gave us strength, and it gave us even more oomph to really do what we could do, or do the best that we could do. So that was really important for us as well in that transition phase.
You know what, and I have to say congratulations to that, because it shows, there was obviously behind the scenes, you guys felt a lot of pressure, and there was a lot going on probably that we're not aware of, but as readers, the transition seemed seamless. And even with COVID, I think more people even so probably relied on the work you're doing as a paper. So obviously, congratulations, of course, to your dad and the team, but also for the two of you for really stepping up your game, so to speak, and making sure that the transition was successful. And even now with COVID, and that's one of the things I'd love to ask both of you is, and maybe you've already done so in a little bit, and it doesn't have to be, sometimes, as we say, it doesn't have to be the big changes that make the most impact. Sometimes it's small things too. But how do you guys look at, the paper today, the digital world in general today, and the future in terms of how you'd like to see the paper continue to evolve, and what type of things would you like to, in terms of as your legacy, leave your stamp behind, so to speak, in that direction that the world is going in?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is support your local newspapers. There have been innumerable articles written over the past year about small newspapers, community newspapers closing. And it was scary for us. It was a difficult time for everybody. But again, thanks to our community, thanks to our supporters, our readers, we were able to come through. And I think that we were one of the lucky ones. I think that there is a newfound kind of movement behind local news now. I think people are realizing how important local and community news sources are to informing various, all of our communities, in addition, as a supplement to national news sources. It's the news that is important to our community, to all small communities, and that's super important. I think also it made us kind of fast forward about 5 years, I would say. We started focusing more on digital, like you mentioned. We have some exciting new projects and announcements coming in the next couple of weeks that were really COVID projects, or that became COVID projects. And so we're very excited about those. Also, the New York Times did this a few years ago. They basically changed over from an advertising-based model to a subscription-based model, which I think is very important with social media and everything these days. We need to make a push, as all local newspapers do, to become even more global and more widely read, because of the ease of the internet and social media and all of the various, new technological advancements in our world. So I would love for us to get more subscribers in Germany, in South Africa, in Australia, all over the world, because we're all one. We're the Greek diaspora. We are the future of Greece. We are the future of our respective smaller communities within the United States or within Australia. And we want us to never forget that, and to go back to Greece, to give back to Greece, to support Greece in any way that we can in our respective tomea, having an ESL moment in our various
fields.
I'm sorry?
Fields,
exactly. That was an easy one. So yeah, that is really what I want for us. I want us to become closer to Greece. I want us to give back to Greece, and I want us to give back to our respective local communities as well.
Yeah, Vanessa was, brilliantly laid that out. I think the pandemic has really solidified the fact that our relationship with our readers is anything but superficial. It means, it tested the bonds of the relationship, and especially during the pandemic when we were forced to be far apart, and we clung to anything that kept us together. And we're very grateful for our readers, our colleagues, and all of our supporters for helping us make it through, and also deepening their relationship with not just our newspaper, with the community. I think that the pandemic helped in a certain sense with the digitalization, as we talked about. I think the changes, and that goes for most industries, I feel, that it accelerated the digitalization in a way that organically could have taken maybe a couple more years. It forced you really to think about what's the best way to get to our readers and to get the word out there on certain things. We have a big responsibility. We're big believers in knowing better and therefore doing better. Unfortunately, in Greece, sometimes the media can be in some ways biased, maybe impacted by things that the public doesn't really know about, and it makes the public question, where is this news actually coming from, and things of that nature. Is there special interests involved? And we have a really big opportunity here to kind of keep not just powerful people, but just wrongdoers accountable, but also celebrating people who do right and just everyday heroes. I think that we as a people, we as Greeks, we don't celebrate each other enough. Sometimes we're really divided for no reason, but for the sake of argument, which we're really good at. We need to step back and kind of congratulate each other and not just talk about, scandals and, things of that nature and negative connotative news, but also talk about the really good work that people are doing, both in Greece and around the world. And as far as where you want to take it, I mean, based off of what we just told you about how we were brought up, I mean, the answer can't be anything other than the best. It's My sister is completely right. I mean, it's not just the community in even more micro, the greater New York City area. It's the entire country. It's coast to coast. It's around the world. There's Greeks everywhere doing amazing things, and we need to know about them because, perhaps not everybody can get their op-ed in the New York Times. Maybe not everybody can get into, the Telegraph or, something like that. But if we can help out to get the word, that'd be phenomenal. And as for our Greek section, I mean, the goal is absolutely to be the #1 Greek language news source, full stop. It doesn't matter if it's diaspora news or anything. That has to be the goal. If you're just going into it and thinking that you can maintain a business like this, thinking that you're, putting out a brochure or something like that, it's not going to work. You have an expiration date already. You have to push. And the reason why you are comfortable pushing and putting the bar so high is because you feel like you have the team to do it. And hopefully soon we're going to have even more tools to do it with. So we are really excited. We're excited to take that journey with our readers and new readers that might come along. And I mean, the goal is to be the best, and not for an ego standpoint, but because once we get to a certain point, I mean, we're going to continue to be doing what we've been doing for 106 years, and then better. And that's what we want to do for more people. So we want everybody to be proud of their Greekness. We want everybody to see what the community is capable of. And frankly, there are things that the community is capable of that we haven't done yet, and we need to do them. So a lot of exciting stuff here at Ethnikos Kyrikas and the National Herald. And we're out to say that, 106 years is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, very few businesses get to that point, or institutions of any kind. But we're here to say that, it's not ending here by any stretch of the imagination.
And the immigrant story never gets old. Another thing that our parents really instilled in us is our work ethic. And I think in addition to many Greeks around the world, we have a work ethic. Hard workers. It's a very difficult, demanding job. But what keeps us going, and what should be really a huge takeaway, is that the immigrant story never gets old. I never get tired of reading about immigrants, about their American dream or their respective country's dream. I never get tired of reading about what their kids are doing, their legacy. We are amazing. We are amazing. And Eraklis really said it best. We have so many good stories to tell, and we're here to help you tell those stories. We need to support each other. I want to know what somebody in California is doing, because I want to be able to help them if I can. And as a community and as Greek people in general, I think that we do have that in us. Sometimes we're a little, competitive or whatever the case may be, but deep down, I think that we want to help each other, and we are kind of the middleman for that. So that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is just connecting various people in our community with others, but like across borders, state borders, community, country borders, etc. So that's very rewarding for us.
And you both said it very well said. Yes, people think of the National Herald, it's a newspaper. You're providing news, stories, information, but you're part of the solution. You're part of the solution. What I mean by that is you're keeping the community active and engaged. And as we all know, and we touched upon it a little bit about the struggle of maintaining ethnic identity. When I grew up in the '60s, everything started from the church out. That was your life for the first several years, right? Even through high school or even elementary school. If you went, I was fortunate enough to go to Greek parochial school, but I see in my children's generation now, the world is much different. It's much difficult. It's much more challenging to keep them engaged. But to both of your points, it takes a village, it takes a choreo, even more so in our evolution here in this country, in the diaspora, is we need to be much more collaborative than we ever have been. We've gone off, unfortunately, in too many different directions. And fortunately, by design, you've been able to be kind of the glue and the foundation for that. And a lot of organizations have taken heed and are looking to be more open-minded and collaborative and work with each other and complement the work, because we're all, as you said, we're all in this together. And we all, this is not something that you deal with once a year. It's a daily battle. And you guys, I mean, nobody knows more of it than you guys yourself, because that's what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So we can't thank you enough for the service you've provided, and obviously the transition of the two of you taking on leadership roles at the newspaper, and sharing it with us today, your thoughts about obviously what matters most in your lives, but also your opinions and your reflections on where you see the community today and going forward. Anything else? I'll leave it up to you guys. Anything else you want to close with as we wrap up in terms of things that you would love to offer your peers or even those younger than you, in terms of staying engaged and types of things that we can do as organizations to help them achieve their goals, but most importantly, obviously, keep their culture and their religion alive and well in them.
Get involved, honestly. Get involved in whatever you can do. You're never going to be as energetic as you are when you're, before 25. So get involved with whatever you can do. I think that's one of the things that my parents really instilled in us. Don't leave your schedule open. Do something every single day. Get involved with your church. Get involved. Go to Greek school. Go to church. Meet people. With social media these days, you can keep in touch with so many people. It's not writing letters anymore. You can literally just go on Instagram, send a direct message to somebody that you haven't spoken to in a while. You don't know where these relationships, again, your Greek relationships will take you. You will find very like-minded people like you. And growing up, I didn't have very many Greek friends. I went to Greek school, but it was just afternoon school. Our school was very, very small. So really, I just looked forward to the summertime where I could go to Greece and be with my cousins and their friends. But now you don't need to wait to do that. You can join any organization that you want. There is something for everyone. You're into science, great. There's something for that. You're into business, get involved. That's really my advice to our younger readers, or whoever is watching this, and even for older people too. There are a ton of organizations and societies that you can join. You can be as involved or as uninvolved as you want to be, but get involved. And I want to thank you very much for having us on this wonderful, I guess it's not a podcast, it's a video conference of some sort. And like Eraklis said a little bit earlier, it's weird being on the receiving end of the questions. We're usually the ones that are asking the questions. And it was nice to reflect and on our entire lives, really, and what we're doing. So thank you for giving us this platform. I really, really appreciate it. And it's always nice to talk with my brother about these things too.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying, thank you for your personal and your family's contribution to this community. It's families like yours that are I mean, you have the Ethnic Orchidika, you have the church, they're right there with you. You have other organizations like the National Hellenic Society, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the individuals making them happen. And it's like you said, you have a dynamic family behind you. We had the same thing growing up, and it really, really makes a difference when people who could very well be doing something else with their time, people who don't necessarily have a whole lot to gain, and just volunteer their time, their treasure, their knowledge, and really take a vested interest in the community. That's how the roots are saved. That's how that's how it gets passed on. So thank you very much to you and your family for all that you all do. In terms of just advice, my sister, I very much enjoy speaking about these things with my sister, and it is quite weird to be asked questions, but rather than asking them ourselves. But I think that I think it can really be boiled down to it's worth it. It's worth it, and it goes back to what I was talking about. Greek school. Did not want to be there. I cannot imagine. I can't even recall off the top of my head one day while I was attending that I was really pleased to be there. Maybe there was like a feast day or something. I don't know. Maybe something like that where the food was great. But it really is worth it. The friends that you make at specifically, to the younger folks, if you go to an excursion to Greece with an organization, maybe you go to the Ionian village with the church, things of that nature. These bonds are not just something to fill your schedule with. If they are experiences taken seriously, these could be lifelong relationships. And also just having that kind of, I don't want to say safety net because people use it with a negative connotation, but I want to say a support system. The community, and we've seen this very much with the pandemic, really has a way of rallying around people when they need assistance or when they just have questions. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. And please don't hesitate to provide those things if you're in a position to do so. It's all worth it, because the more that we get together as a community, the more that we can do as a collective, whether that's, sending political candidates to Capitol Hill, maybe one day the White House, impacting policies, making large scale differences in the Greek community and beyond, who knows? But you can only do that with the right people, just like our company, with the right people around you. So all I'll say is it's worth it. Fill up that schedule if you're able to. I know that, maybe sitting around on the couch it's useful too. But instead of, maybe if you do that 3 weekends, maybe you do that just the one time. And maybe you use your other weekends, or if you can during the week, because I know a lot of people are still on a fluid work schedule from home. This is a perfect opportunity now that you might not be in the office yet to really look in your communities and see, of all ages, doesn't matter what age you are. This might be a unique opportunity that we might not have again. I'm not sure how the world's going to look after all of this, but if the work from home model is not here to stay, take this time to really engage with your community and see where you can be of most use and where you find the most fulfillment. So thank you again for having us. It's always great to talk to Vanessa about these things as well, and really great questions. And we look forward to really working with the National Hellenic Society more to accomplish the things that we're talking about. Again, it takes the whole Horio, and we all have to do our part.
Thank you, Eraklis. Thank you, Vanessa Kalastefana. Hope you're wonderful. Have wonderful summers, and again, we look forward to continue to work with you and on our dual stated mission of working together and keeping our community active and engaged. So thank you both again for this time. Really appreciate it. And we want to, again, thank you and your families for the great role you play in our community. and obviously the future is bright with both of you at the helm. So thank you again.
Thank you for having us.